UFC 307. I think it's a pretty good card. A lot of people seem to be a little bit down on it, but there's some really good matchups, man. Some excellent finishing potential throughout the whole thing. I mean, from the main event, even though a lot of people believe Alex Pereira is going to run right through Khalil Rountree, another highlight reel for Alex Pereira would be pretty exciting. And also, Khalil Rountree has the opportunity to win with the biggest upset of the year in a championship fight. Or Alex Pereira finally solidifies his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt and double legs Khalil Rountree, submitting him with rear naked choke would be insane. He has been talking about his grappling leading up to this fight. He said he finally understands MMA at this level. What does that mean? He probably shoots a takedown out there and chokes out Khalil Rountree. But any kind of finish in that main event is going to be exciting. Aldo versus Bautista is a great fight. Kayla Harrison going to put on another amazing performance, most likely. Dolidze versus Holland, a potential finish in that one. Buckley can prove himself as a legitimate welterweight contender with beating Wonderboy, even if that is through his wrestling. Actually, that could be pretty crazy if he knocks out Wonderboy in the stand-up without shooting takedowns. Cesar Almeida is fun to watch. Marina Rodriguez and Jasmine Lucindos are going to be a fun fight. OSP versus Ryan Spann, another potential finish there. And Tim Means versus Court McGee, two veterans for potentially one last scrap. Who doesn't like seeing fights like that, man? I've been watching these two for a long time. So overall, I give the card like a 6 or 7 out of 10. I think it's just above average, but there's not really a prospect on the card, and like none of them are. If I have to pick who the prospect of the night is, it's probably Cesar Almeida, even though he's 36 years old. He's a lot more experienced in kickboxing, but he's only 5-1 at MMA, not going up against contenders or ranked middleweights. So I guess prospect of the night goes to him. The stake of the night, the fighter that needs a win here is Court McGee. He's on a 3-loss streak, way over the hill. If he loses to Tim Means, he might retire after. The fighter of the night is, of course, the face of the UFC, the champion who fights more than contenders, Alex Pereira. And he's looking to make history by having 3 title defenses in 175 days, the shortest span of 3 title defenses in UFC history, which would beat Ronda Rousey. He's by far the biggest star on the card. The banger of the night is that main event, Alex Pereira versus Khalil Rountree. This is going to be a crazy finish in that main event. Either it's Alex Pereira showing his dominance in the striking and KOing Khalil Rountree with a quickness, or maybe he gets a submission, or it's Khalil Rountree getting the biggest championship upset of the year by beating Alex Pereira. That is going to be an explosive fight between 2 power punchers. That is going to be a very explosive fight. And then the fight of the night, the best fight of the entire card, is Jose Aldo versus Mario Bautista. Great striking from both of them. Bautista is very durable. Aldo has all the technique, and the experience on his side is one of the all-time greats of the sport. And this is a big opportunity for Bautista to defeat the legend and build himself on that. So we're going to start with the first fight. Tim Means versus Court McGee. I'm going to go with Tim Means. He hasn't declined like Court McGee has. He's still kind of dangerous. He's still dangerous in the stand-up. He's still dangerous on the ground. Court McGee likes to wrestle his way to a decision, but with power the last thing to go. And Tim Means always had more power than Court McGee. Always a better stand-up fighter, and also better with his submissions. Nasty elbows in the clinch. I think he's going to finish Court McGee maybe in the 2nd or 3rd rounds. I think he catches him with a big elbow in the clinch. As McGee's shooting takedowns, Tim Means defends it, rises to the clinch, elbow, knee, drops him, finishes him with a rear naked choke. I would say probably 3rd round. Then we go to Ovince Preux versus Ryan Spann. OSP's coming off a win. He's been exchanging wins and losses, but having a split decision win against Ketlen Chukwu, and he has declined a bit. Crafty and very dangerous wherever it goes, but I think Ryan Spann is just too athletic, too fast, and too powerful, while also being dangerous everywhere. But he's on a 3-loss streak. He really needs to win this fight. And I think with OSP just being so old now, and his chin is absolutely gone, I think Ryan Spann is going to nuke him in the stand-up. But I'm going to be honest, if OSP somehow counters Ryan Spann and knocks him out with like a counter hook, I would not be surprised. Ryan Spann's very wild in the stand-up. He gets so reckless, and OSP's awkward enough where he could just land some big shot like that out of nowhere. But yeah, I'm definitely going with Ryan Spann. Carla Esparza versus Tecia Pennington, former 2-time strawweight champion, is the underdog against Tecia. Esparza's coming off that one loss back in 2022 to Zhang Wei Li, where she hasn't been fighting, but before that had a very good win streak, beating Verna, Alexa Grasso, Marina Rodriguez, Yan Xiaonan, Rose Namajunas, Michelle Watterson. Like, amazing win streak in terms of who she beat. The way she beat them, besides Yan Xiaonan, which was her best performance, the others were split decisions, majority decisions, and stuff like that. But the ability to beat those fighters is very impressive, and she has the kind of wrestling skill to win this fight as well. I don't know why Tecia's a favorite going into it. Tecia's coming off 2 losses in a row to Tabitha Ritchie and Mackenzie Dern, both split decisions. She has fought this year, which does give her an advantage in that, but I think Carl's just going to take her down and ride to a decision. She's very good against submissions. Tecia is not powerful. She's got a good sidekick, good blitzes from range, but that's the kind of approach that Carla wants out of her opponents, because she's very good at transitioning to the double leg. And the sidekicks can also get grabbed by Carla and taken to the ground from there. So I don't I don't understand that. I think Carla should have a very comfortable win here. Then we go to Alexander Hernandez versus Austin Hubbard. Man, it was crazy because we all thought Alexander Hernandez was a very promising prospect after he knocked out Beneil Dariush. Ever since, man, just hasn't been able to get a big win. His biggest win after was Jim Miller, who's at the tail end of his career. He's 2-5 in his last 7 fights. When Hernandez fights, it looks like he's thinking too much. He's not reacting in the fight. He's not fighting off of his instincts and what he learned in the training room, but it's like he's anticipating every move from his opponent and then trying to think of counters or blitzing the opponent down recklessly. And Austin Hubbard is the more well-rounded fighter. He's a lot more technical in the stand-up. He has better distance management. He's not as good on the ground, I think. The wrestling from Hernandez should be a big advantage for Hernandez to win the fight, but I might go with Austin Hubbard here, man. Countering Hernandez as he's trying to blitz in, landing jabs from range, body kicks, maybe kick to the head after conditioning with body kicks, and just causing enough damage to win on a decision. I do see him getting taken down, but I like Austin Hubbard's patience and his distance management compared to Hernandez's, so I'm going to go with Austin Hubbard here to win by a decision. Then go to Ihor Poteiria versus Cesar Almeida. Almeida's knocking him out. Poteiria doesn't have much of a chin. He's very wild. Cesar Almeida's dangerous in the stand-up. He's just overall more technical. He's better with his offense. He's better with his defense, better counters, better footwork. Even though Poteiria will move around sometimes, doesn't mean he actually has better footwork. Almeida's going to be able to dodge a lot of the wildness, counter with the lead hand, and I think eventually he knocks him out with a head kick. So I'm going to go with Cesar Almeida by a knockout in the second round. They're going to Marina Rodriguez versus Jasmine Lucindo. I got Marina Rodriguez. And Lucindo's the favorite. I don't agree with that at all. I think Rodriguez is just a sharper puncher. She's better from range. She's the taller, longer fighter with much better straight punches, whereas Lucindo wings and overhands and haymakers, and just it's perfect for Rodriguez to just pinpoint the 1-2 over and over again, and then set up high kicks off of those, work from the clinch. If Lucindo tries to get past the long range, Rodriguez can punish that with a lot of good knees and elbows in the clinch. The only thing is, Rodriguez is 37 years old. That's the main thing that can get her to lose this fight. You know, she's just over the hill at this point, but she's only lost to the best fighters, right? She lost to Andrade, Verna, Lemos, Esparza, and the Andrade and Esparza fights were very close. So even though her recent record is kind of salty, 1-3 in her last 4 fights, she looks good enough, I think, to beat Lucindo. Lucindo's just very, very wild, man. And I just see those looping punches getting countered by the straight punches of Rodriguez. So if Rodriguez is not over the hill, I think Rodriguez should win the fight. And then we go to Wonderboy versus Joaquin Buckley. This is an interesting fight, man. Wonderboy's clearly got the striking advantage, but Buckley's been wrestling, man. Earlier on, he was known for his striking, but when he went down to the welterweight division, he's gotten a little bit more technical, a bit more patient, and mixing his martial arts. And as we know, Wonderboy doesn't really do well against wrestlers if their name's not Johnny Hendricks, which was prime Wonderboy, but 41 years old, can still beat most of the strikers in the weight class. Every single time he goes up against someone who can wrestle him, he loses. But that's not enough to tell you who wins the fight, right? Because Wonderboy was stuffing some of the takedowns against Shavkat Rakhmonov. And Buckley, even though he's wrestling a lot more, doesn't mean he's a great wrestler. And if he blitzes and tries to find those overhands and hooks like he still does, Wonderboy is going to counter him and potentially drop him off of that. Because the way that Buckley explodes, he's really putting himself into the fire to land one of his power punches. And the best counter puncher in the division are maybe Michael Page and Wonderboy. So part of me wants to pick Wonderboy to win here because I just don't think Buckley's a great wrestler, but he's getting better every single time he fights. Wonderboy slowly declining. I guess I'm going to go with Joaquin Buckley. I think eventually he will take the fight to the ground, land big ground and pound shots, but I think Wonderboy is tough enough to survive the ground and pound, and Buckley will win by decision because of the damage of the ground and pound. So I'm going with Joaquin Buckley by decision, but I will not be surprised at all if Wonderboy wins this fight. Then go to Roman Dolidze versus Kevin Holland. I'm going with Kevin Holland. He's just way more dangerous. In the middleweight division, he does have a bigger problem with wrestlers or anybody that can grapple because they just outmuscle him, but Dolidze is so slow. He's at a reach disadvantage. He's not as good of a striker. Very dangerous on the ground. Like, he's an actual good grappler, but unless Kevin Holland swings one of those big punches and misses, and Roman Dolidze takes him down from there, I think Dolidze is just too slow and obvious with his footwork, where Kevin Holland will snipe him and knock him out. So I'm going to go with Kevin Holland by a 3rd round TKO, dropping Dolidze and then finishing with ground and pound. Then with Kayla Harrison versus Ketlen Vieira. Kayla Harrison bulldozes her, steamrolls her, makes the fight easy, not even a competitive fight. Kayla Harrison's the best bantamweight in the world. There's no one beating her in this weight class. She's the best grappler in the weight class, and she's one of the best strikers too. And she's the most powerful, she's the strongest, she's one of the fastest. Why isn't she fighting for the belt already? Ketlen Vieira is pretty decent. She has decent power, she's good in the clinch, which is a position she she does not want to be with Kayla Harrison, but she doesn't have much footwork to her or much defense in general. So I can see Kayla Harrison even dropping her with a hook or an overhand and then finishing her with a ground and pound. She is so good. I don't even know how she makes the weight class. I mean, she was grappling in judo at like 170 pounds, and she's fighting at 135 pounds. Her biceps are the size of like her opponent's head. She's ridiculously jacked. It's insane. Then we go to the big fights of the card. We start with the featherweight GOAT Jose Aldo versus Mario Bautista. This should be a really good fight. Aldo looked amazing in his fight with Jonathan Martinez, who is mostly a kicker, whereas Mario Bautista is a lot more well-rounded. Sometimes switches stances, he's got a good jab, some good counter hooks, but oftentimes when he's setting up his strikes, he does get off balance or telegraphs a strike, and Jose Aldo can counter that with faster punches, just like Ricky Simon did, landed that big left hook when Mario Bautista was setting up his knee or his kick and got dropped for that. And Aldo can land shots a lot faster than Ricky Simon can. I believe Aldo's the faster fighter of the two. His leg kicks can be very effective against Bautista's striking style. Takedowns would be very interesting if Aldo gets some sweeps in the clinch. He's shown that before, like when he fought Korean Zombie. He has a very underrated offensive wrestling game, and most of Bautista's opponents have taken him to the ground. That includes Ricky Simon, Damon Blackshear, Guido Canetti, Jay Perrin, Jin Sun, and even Corey Sandhagen years ago. I believe if Aldo wants to secure a win here, he could also take the fight to the ground, land big ground and pound shots, and Aldo has very good top control as well. So my prediction for this fight, I'm going to go with Jose Aldo. I think he's the better striker of the two. I think he's both better on the feet and on the ground. The main combination for Bautista is the 1-2, a simple jab straight or even a jab right hook, trying to get Aldo to counter on the jab only and not really see the right hand coming behind it. But I do think Aldo is going to be the sharper puncher of the two. He's going to land big leg kicks. It'd be great to see him get some takedowns as well, and I think he's going to win by a decision. And then we go to the co-main event, the title fight between Raquel Pennington and Julianna Pena. Raquel Pennington is on a 6-fight win streak, just won the belt against Mayra Bueno Silva, whereas Julianna is 2-2 in her last 4 fights. She's been very inactive, hasn't fought since 2022, where she lost to Amanda Nunes in a dominant decision. But before that, she did beat Amanda, huge win in her career, by far bigger than any of her other wins. The other one is Sarah McMahon, when McMahon was like 41 years old. And before that, she got submitted by Jermaine Durandamy, of all fighters, the striker, like the specialist striker of the weight class. Julianna's wild with her hands, throws punches, kind of like a Looney Tunes character, but unlike Dricus du Plessis, it doesn't work for her because her game plan isn't really up to par, not even close. And she's not as physical as Dricus is either, right? She's kind of small. She's not big for the weight class. I think Raquel's bigger than her. Most of the fighters at bantamweight right now are bigger than her, so she can't really juggernaut her way through her opponents, as most of them are stronger and more powerful than she is. And that includes Raquel. Raquel, on the other hand, is more refined with her striking and her pace. Raquel's kind of tough. She's durable. She's got decent cardio and understands the basics enough, I think, for her to win this fight. And I think Raquel will win because she just understands the basics better than Julianna Pena. She jabs better. She throws the 1-2 better. She blocks better. She has a better understanding of guarding against punches and defending takedowns and pacing herself and using the clinch whenever the opponent is rushing at her, right? Whereas Julianna kind of spazzes out all over the place, even when it comes to the ground, enough for her to get submitted by Shevchenko years ago and Jermaine Durandamy. She's way better offensively than she is defensively. But even with that, I got Raquel Pennington winning by a decision. She's not really a finisher. She's not powerful or goes for submissions that often. So it's probably going to be a 5-rounder of Julianna windmilling punches, Raquel moving backwards, clinching up, resetting, hits her with a couple jabs, maybe 1-2. Julianna windmills again. Clinch, reset, jab 1-2, windmill from Julianna again, into a decision. And then we go to the main event where Shaman Magic meets Cult Magic. The light heavyweight champion, the most active champion in the UFC, the stone face of the UFC, Alex Pereira, versus the number 7 ranked light heavyweight, Khalil Rountree. 2 strikers, power punchers, knockout artists. This is going to be a finish in this fight 100%, whether that's Alex adding another to the highlight reel or Rountree getting the biggest championship upset of the year by KOing the best striker we've ever seen in the heavier weight classes. And that would be the most MMA moment of all time. Because what would that mean about Dustin Jacoby and Johnny Walker and Marcin Prachnio and these other guys that beat Khalil Rountree? I do believe Dustin Jacoby should have won the fight. Like, this is the thing. When you look at matchups like this, who they beat and who they lost to doesn't really matter that much. It's all about the technique, style, strategy, and the conditioning of both the fighters going into the fight. Right? How ready are they for 5 rounds? This is going to be in high elevation. Khalil Rountree has always been known to not not have great cardio. He's gassed out after the first round before. And even against Dustin Jacoby, he was exhausted in the third round, which he still somehow was winning. But labored shots, hands down, much slower in that round. Alex Pereira, though, has gone 5 rounds before and went 3 rounds against Jan Blachowicz at high elevation and won that fight. So the game plan for Rountree is very interesting, because if he starts out way too quickly, thinking that he has to get a first or second round knock, he's going to be exhausted and knocked out in the later rounds. I don't think Alex is going to push a pace that much. I think he's going to allow Rountree to kind of get reckless and then counter him. There's no need to push a pace on Rountree. Just let him do his thing, throw out those haymakers, he overextends, and then counter him. It's a simple game plan for Alex Pereira to win the fight, but I can also see him shooting a takedown, as he has been training that in this training camp. He even took down Sean Strickland in the training room, and we know Khalil Rountree is no Sean Strickland even when it comes to wrestling. Strickland has good defensive wrestling, to the point where even Drickus wasn't able to hold him down. And Rountree likes to lean away from feints and jabs, and Alex can get a double leg takedown from that. You know, he throws a jab, throws a feint, double leg, take him to the ground. Khalil gives up his back trying to stand up, not expecting Pereira to go for a rear naked choke. Submission win for Alex Pereira would be such a great finish for UFC 307. But the way that Rountree would win the fight is like countering a leg kick or a body kick, landing a big shot off of checking them or parrying them first, then landing the big shot. That's like the best way I think Rountree wins this fight. He also has the opening of Alex Pereira's moving backwards on a straight line, and he's blitzing him and lands some overhand or something, knocking him out like that. And hopefully Alex does not start trading shots with Rountree. He learned from the Adesanya fight and didn't do it as much against Jan Blachowicz. But if he does that against Rountree, Rountree could knock him out. So my prediction for this fight, I'm going with Alex Pereira by a knockout in the second round. I think Khalil Rountree is not a fighter to underestimate. He's not a guy to just write off and count out of a fight. He hits hard. This is light heavyweight. One shot from Rountree could knock out Alex Pereira. So it's all it takes for both fighters. Who lands that first punch? And I think it's going to be Alex Pereira, even with Rountree having the speed advantage. And that's the end of the predictions, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you did, make sure to give the video a like. Make sure to subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. Who you guys think is going to win on these fights, especially with the Aldo and Alex Pereira fights. And I'll see you guys in the next video.